Obsidian, ye who have always been known for compensating your shortcomings with irresistible charms, but for your latest outing, instead decided to alienate the actual majority of your potential player base. Sorry, buyer base, well ahead of its release. But we preach separating the art from the artist on this channel, so let's nevertheless see what's good with Avowed. I'm approaching this as someone who's enjoyed his time with both of the Pillar of Eternity games, but failed to find either particularly memorable, which is to say this is basically all new information to me, as well as someone whom the initial reveal trailer really spoke to with its dark undertones and the unspoken promise of a tighter, presumably more personable take on Skyrim. As such, this intro is doing absolutely nothing to awaken any of my receptors, and I'm already a bit peeved from the fact it basically looks like the next Outer Worlds. Anywho, let's see if the character creator does awaken me, with more than the genderless vocabulary at least. I almost managed to forget the heavy emphasis on fungus in this game, and yes, while you can choose to hide it, everyone in the game will constantly poke fun at it anyway, so you might as well wear your shrooms with pride. What I didn't know ahead of time was, per the presets, I could either be ugly, a chick, or a gay dude. My favorite choice. What in the toadstool is that? I mean, accessorize to your heart's content, but isn't eyesight fairly important in this game? Anyway, I finally landed on a pair of fabulous shroom bros and opted to try and make my gay dude a bit Geralt-esque. As such, of the 5 available backgrounds, 3 of which are nerd options, I went with the only one that displayed a facial scar. Oh, sod off. After seeing how dirty cats were done in this fantasy land, and that's even before the, I'm guessing, supposedly scary mutation, and having our boaty boat rocked, we awake ashore a peaceful beach, but our peace is promptly interrupted by a random local furry. He tries to misdirect us with some average construction worker banter, but we know better. He's a proper zesty furry through and through. Anywho, we move onwards past the aforementioned boards and proceed to poke our tiny yet shiny blade into a couple of local lizard people. I'm immediately struck with how rather sluggish and unintuitive this poking feels, but I'll wager I'm just a bit shit at the game from the start and things will improve soon. Then we run into another of those terribly misfortuned cats, one even uglier than the ones from before, so we put it out of its misery. We come upon a bloody scene where, to my immense disappointment, we learn that we cannot contribute it to it, so we swiftly move along. A few more reptiles later, we stumble upon a damsel in distress.
Stay back. I'm not catching whatever's on your head.
Bitch, I'm here to help!
He's so godlike.
You mean a god gave you that face?
Bah! Yeah, fair enough. I do look as though the sea spat me out with some barnacles my niece ravaged with her crayons stuck to my face. And yeah, the jump scare cuts to my face are about to be the most consistent thing about the game, better get used to it. Anywho, while the lass gives us a metric ton of attitude, we decide to save her ass regardless, much to the dismay of our furry companion who would much rather keep us to himself. Away we go until we find a bow, our first secondary loadout. A bit of light reading and ingrown hair burning later, the game informs us it subscribes to the highly advanced stealth model consisting of sneaking up on static enemies from their dead angles and pressing X to win. Afterwards, we find our first magic wand complete with a grimoire. This is the normal difficulty. Kindly notice how the basic wand attack does all the damage of an ostrich's feather brushing against a kangaroo's bicep. I'm now noticing how switching to the other loadout comfortably takes about 2 business days, possibly because we have to handle the grimoire with similar tenderness. Anyway, we run around this new Outer Worlds DLC map for a bit and eventually run into our first boss battle.
I had dreams.
Oh, I bet. One can hope this isn't a premonition for the boss fights to come. In any case, he falls and we talk to a piece of queer looking rock sticking out of the ground and then finally sort off out of the tutorial zone. This is where we meet Garrus from Wish and another lovely, perfectly unbiased lady.
Now there's a good idea. How's about we partner up? Name's Kai. I've been a soldier, a sailor, and a halfway decent baritone.
Ugh, nah, this is far too dry corn cereal for me. Let me just play, it's not like I really care who tags along. The 2 biggest things I noticed during this dialogue is A, skill up was right, this is exposition first, characterization possibly 4th or 5th, and B, am I actually deciding to what extent is my L. Geralt BT perverted, Or am I making stuff up? Spoiler alert, I absolutely am shaping the actual story here, and we do get to meet this fabled Inquisitor and realize our mistakes. Stay tuned! Garrus from Wish pushes us to go get some fresh air, which we already are, so I take it to mean he actually wants to go for a swim. Now, I have seen clips of people finding interesting stuff underwater, which immensely hyped up my inner hydromaniac, but this entire body of water here seems to have been an afterthought. But at least I quickly verified my dude's shadow looks better swimming than V's in Cyberpunk 2077, so Avowed is confirmed to be the superior game. Then again, Cyberpunk 2077 at least had the decency to not throw in an arbitrary butt-ugly third-person mode. Anyway, out of the empty waters I got very quickly distracted by the rest of the area and took to looting, exploring every crevice I caught with the corner of my eye, creating impromptu icy platforms, crashing someone's picnic blanket where they foolishly left a whole fish pie. Eat your fish, kids, they make you smarter. Indulging in some surprisingly smooth parkour and taking in the local vistas, marveling at the quality assurance team's job with this texture work here, and randomly picking up a quest item with no context yet. This prompted me to rejoin society and start questing. But not before testing the locals' resolve, and I can happily report these are some of the toughest folk in gaming history. After all that exercise, we settle in for a good night's rest, and Garfish tells us a lovely exposition fairy tale to help us fall asleep.
From outlying regions, the guards are restricting access to the city.
We decide to begin the next day of adventuring by chatting up more locals.
Feels sometimes like the plague is alive somehow.
Well, that's about as subtle as Eddie's Hall's tank at a random gas station in Stone.
Venture past the palisades at your own risk.
Girl, I realize I don't look like much, but can't you see the book and stick I'm wielding? Obviously I'm ready. But I wasn't. Not for another body of water flirting with me so relentlessly. But this time we shake the cheap thrills off and instead test out the third-person combat in a local encampment. And I can happily report it sucks and there's absolutely no good reason to ever switch to it. We do a bunch more killing and running around until suddenly we come upon a perhaps not friendly, but at least not immediately hostile Paradise dragon. Gartroud, of course, has some brilliant insight to enrich the situation.
Of course, you don't see them fighting their friends every day either.
A short walk later, we run into our first human enemies. Assuming this is human, that is. We slaughter them all, and Gar Salmon celebrates with all the enthusiasm of a regular salmon getting filleted.
Another win. But who's counting?
Deeper into the wilderness, we examine the limits of the previously flattered parkour against everyone's beloved invisible walls. Later, we disrespect the holy law of dips and kill a local grave robber when she refuses to let it go, and scavenge the treasure ourselves. A whole 10 silver pfennigs and a single gem. In that big-ass chest. That's what we just committed murder for. To clear our conscience, we finally start following the quest mark leading us to the Strangle Route, whatever that is. Along the way, we find a rifle and put it to good use, and soon after we find ourselves at the very obvious entrance to the Strangle Route. Marching in, I'm pleasantly surprised to not be interrupted by any loading screen. Who would have thought? Following a very linear path, killing a bunch of bears and other wildlife, we stumble into our second boss fight, shockingly, with a big mutated bear. Disposing of it grants us an audience with the ambassador, and I'm sorry, but Felsken Halgard? Nah, he's clearly a Fabio. Fabio Martinez from your great aunt's favorite Argentinian telenovela. Then we find an even larger queer piece of rock, so naturally we enjoy ourselves an even longer chat with it. Being the absolute silver-tongued devil we are, we persuade the rock to suck some of its solidified boogers back in, impressing the mighty hells out of Fabio.
Incredible.
After that ordeal, we hightail back to town to restock, and wouldn't you know it, we also picked up another random contextless quest item, apparently. This one might even save a broken marriage. Aw, we take to some more casual exploring and oh no, a loading screen. Strangler didn't require one, but a random little cavern does. Oh, to be a gamer in 2025. The cavern in question is full of the world's least intimidating spiders in the history of fiction, plus a spider boss. Would you look at those smooth animations? Easily exterminated, one of its babies done got bugged in the limbo between life and death. And yes, this is a bug, not another example of supremely tough life forms permeating these lands. As a matter of fact, that ugly cat was the only harmless thing I was able to attack. Avowed is aggressively a dark person, confirmed. Anywho, after looting some more boring items, we head into the city proper and run into a familiar face.
Shove off, Muttonhead.
It's no wonder the adherents think
think we need a little...
Jeez, careful y'all. Could cut my finger with how sharp you're roasting each other. Anyways, we walk in and get assassinated and return to the ethereal sperm form. We have a proper face-to-face exchange with that queer rock, this time enjoying an obligatory humanoid shape who shoots us back out of the sack to the world of the living.
Glad to see you with us.
Thank you, Garcop. The emotive sincerity in your shock to see me alive is really quite moving. Despite just getting up from the most devastating nap, we are naturally already being bombarded with new tasks, including fighting whoever shot the arrow as well as a special kinda healer because the good doctor just ain't convinced we're all good. Since we're in the city though, I figure we might as well grab a quick pint in the local pub. Alas, it is by and large the most lifeless pub I have ever seen and my moop is instantly soured. So instead, we go for another swim and finally find something. Then we also find the local bounty boat and discover that Spider Buzz was, in fact, a haunted individual. We chat up a nearby attractive young blacksmith, but are instantly turned off when we realize she has just about the identical personality to everyone else we had met thus far, plus we just spent all our money elsewhere, so toodaloo. After, we find a young gentleman who's apparently just been through quite something, but not a single bruise nor clothing damage in sight. My man, you know how to fall. If all else fails, you could make some good living as a stuntman. Afterwards, we're at last reunited with Fabio. And like everyone else, he wastes no time, expresses no real emotion in seeing me alive after taking me for dead, and it's straight to business as usual. Which is to say, we gotta figure out what happened to us, find whoever shot at us, and then return to the reason we are here at all. Crack the case of all these weird mutations. To help, we'll be picking up a new companion. Yes, thank you, Garcot. We were just there, remember? First thing first, we visit the Watcher, rob her blind without even saying hi, and then use her services regardless. Ah! I'm never getting used to these. Anyway, the Oracle Chaka Turbo 2000 can hear the voice inside our head as well, and confirms we are not only okay, we are magnificent, healthier than ever. But she also says we are cursed now, but nevertheless, we should keep talking to every queer rock we find, and I like me some exposure therapy. Then, it's straight back to town to that abandoned asylum room of a tavern to meet our dwarf, and let me tell ya, it sure ain't no Zoltan.
Still, it's dangerous to make assumptions.
My man, why are you talking nearly exactly the same like my friend Garsnapper? Why don't you have a more unique personality? Gah! Anywho, time to turn our attention to the killer. Along the way, this little librarian Tilda Swinton stops us to oogle our post-mortem yet superbly vital body. And then our new friend lends us his expertise. Ah yes, shooting from the highest point nearby. Thank the laws you're here, as we most certainly could never put that together. Up there, we find a conveniently served up spilled flask of poison and identify that even our new tracker friend can't place it, but suggests who could know more. All I'm taking away from this is that our assassin is an absolute amateur and we are about to find him in the next half hour. Before looking deeper into the poison, we run into a warm, welcoming, friendly lad amping himself up to go on stage and perform a one-man show for a very eager audience. Except, it wasn't meant to be a one-man show, as his co-stars got drunk and slept in. We encouraged the poor sod, only to find that mental illness is rampant in Paradise. Then we run into another capital G foray who tries to intimidate us while possibly also seducing us at the same time. We pay him no mind and push forth all the way to the dude who supposedly really knows his poisons. But he is held up with the local cartel. So we deal with the cartel post-haste, and the dude has the gall to be dodgy, but we easily break through, and he reveals some mystic types. Bought the poison off him recently. We get 2 suggestions on where to continue, but first, we need to clean the streets of the rest of the cartel dirt. Turning a random nearby corner, we find ourselves in the local bathhouse, and in the span of a 2-minute dialogue, we unmask the receptionist, deflect her hostility, convince her we just want to help, and become besties for life. The curiosity got the better of me here, and I just had to verify if, unlike the tavern, there's some life beating at least through the sex club. Oh dear lord. Once we're done perving out, we hit the temple right away and meet a lady who couldn't possibly give away her dirty secrets any quicker, complete with the location of our assassin. And where else could he possibly be hiding than every gamer's favorite video game staple, the sewers? But to be honest, I did find these sewers fun to explore and traverse, with the only real stain on my enjoyment being another loading screen separating the sewers from the rest of the world. I don't think I'll ever understand why Strangleroot of all places was afforded the luxury of exception here. Anywho, after much running and jumping and climbing and looting and fighting and more icy platforming, we come shrooms to mask with our fate killer. Others tried to describe him as some monstrous man, but he's actually a perfectly soft-spoken gentleman who's overjoyed to see his skill issue materialize in all his glory. He's also apparently been dreaming of me, the old flirt, and we've been ignoring Gartuna for too long, so naturally he has to butt in with more flabbergasting insight.
The only thing standing before us is a bunch of well-armed people.
Brother, we've just gone through roughly 3 dozens of equally as armed goons to get here. Now you're getting the affared testicular shrinkage? Regardless, I like a good submissive bottom, so Igolf, YG Wolf, gets to survive this meeting, and oh my, he apologizes and gives a gift? God damn! I could get used to this energy. Can I come live with you? Thank you for another jump scare game. It sure shook me awake from my momentary weakness there. Back to Fabio to report our findings, and regrettably, because something politics, it's really bad news, we let our new pet sub go. Fabio is so furious he even openly admits he doesn't really give a rat's ass about the plague and the mutations and what have you, but frankly neither do I, so can't really blame him. More importantly, we finally get to meet the woman we'd previously declared our lover. And of course, she's a hot bake oven. Okay, so maybe that's why we appreciate a good submissive bottom out in the wild, because we ourselves have bottomed for this fiery lady harder than any one of them could even imagine. Maybe that's why we instinctively went with that haircut, so that Miss Steel Furnace over here could grab onto something while pegging us so rough it squeezed pink fungus out of our facial pores. But of course, not even her attachable industrial drill penetrated us as deep and cut as sharp as her not even remembering us at first glance. But I mean, look at her. Of course she gets to burn us. Anyway, after another exposition dump, she saws off again. Everyone has a lot of thoughts, but my only thought is to finally turn this thing off. So, it took me 6 hours of playtime to meet my lover, but what am I really thinking about the game overall? Well, I think the fairly public mockery of the game and its use to illustrate differences between it and older games, more than anything, is a result of that alienation mentioned at the intro. Personally, I'd hope this case would be used as a study defining once and for all that all publicity is good publicity most assuredly does not apply universally. Let us compare this new hot release with the last similar one you had, The Outer Worlds, and I'll just remind you, The Outer Worlds released exclusively on the Epic Games Store and in Game Pass, and only a full ass year later did it also drop on Steam. Yeah, now if you ask me, I think just like Outer Worlds, Avowed is the perfect game for Game Pass. Something relatively serviceable you shouldn't expect a whole lot from, play it and forget it type of ordeal. There is some fun to be had, no doubt, but unlike even The Outer Worlds, there don't really appear to be any flashes of something great. There doesn't really appear to be any depth to sink into, narratively or gameplay-wise. Even now, after I just quit the game, I can't really remember what the fuck just happened. These 6 hours absolutely were the least enjoyable and interesting I have ever had with an Obsidian game, but as we all hopefully know and understand by now, the studio name means nothing if the people operating under it don't live up to it.
Avowed is lame, but say Bloodborne is still the same.